Hello and welcome to Foreign Dispatches, the program that takes you around the world in 25 minutes. I'm Teniola Shoboale. On the program this week, Muslims around the world mark Eid el-Kabir holiday, overshadowed by COVID-19 for another year. Muslims around the world have observed another major Islamic holiday in the shadow of the pandemic and amid growing concerns about the highly infectious Delta variant of the coronavirus. Once drawing some 2.5 million Muslims from across the globe to the holy city of Mecca in Saudi Arabia, the Islamic pilgrimage was dramatically scaled back due to the virus. This year, only 60,000 vaccinated Saudi citizens or residents of Saudi Arabia were allowed to perform the Hajj.
Muslim pilgrims vaccinated against COVID-19 gathered for the annual Hajj pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia, which barred worshippers from abroad for a second year running due to the pandemic. Clad in white robes denoting a state of purity, 60,000 Saudi citizens and residents perform the rite, a once-in-a-lifetime duty for every able-bodied Muslim who can afford it. The figure is far greater than last year's largely symbolic Hajj that saw fewer than 1,000 people from within the kingdom taking part.
Thank God this is my first time to perform Hajj, and I consider myself as a lucky person that I've got accepted in this exceptional year of Hajj, involving 60,000 pilgrims.
Saudi Arabia is home to Islam's holiest sites in Mecca and Medina, the annual 3-day stoning of the devil ritual, at which pilgrims must hurl pebbles at a giant wall, has in the past been the scene of several deadly crowd accidents. In 2015, hundreds died in a crush at an intersection leading up to the site. With the coronavirus the main concern this year, authorities restricted access to pilgrims aged 18 to 65 who've been fully vaccinated or immunized against the virus and do not suffer from chronic diseases. In previous years, more than 2 million pilgrims used to cover Mount Mercy on the plains of Arafat, sitting close to each other under the scorching heat of the desert city of Mecca. This year, pilgrims had to observe social distancing, wear face masks at all times on the hill where Islam holds that God tested Abraham's faith by commanding him to sacrifice his son, Ismail. It's also where Prophet Muhammad gave his last sermon.
Honestly, the difference is very clear between when I performed Hajj 15 years ago compared to now. When we used to throw the stones, it was very crowded and pilgrims used to push each other, while the older pilgrims were harmed and needed to be transported in ambulances. Today, as we can see, the place is big and comfortable and secure. It's a huge difference.
Thank God everything is at its best. Social distancing, precautionary measures, and I received the stones in a bag without the need to pick them up. It's a very easy Hajj, 100%.
The Hajj is one of Islam's most important requirements to be performed once in a lifetime. The pared-down Hajj of this year and last year, due to the pandemic, not only affects the ability of people outside Saudi Arabia to fulfill the Islamic obligation, but also the billions of dollars annually that Saudi Arabia draws from being the custodian of the holy sites. Saudi Arabia has so far recorded more than 507,000 coronavirus infections, including over 8,000 deaths. More than 20 million vaccine doses against the infections have been administered in the country of over 34 million people.
Over in the UAE, Muslim faithful celebrated Eid under coronavirus restrictions. Authorities had announced a raft of measures, including movement restrictions, test and entry rules, and reduced crowd capacity in public places to keep the virus at bay. Our correspondent, Mayowa Aduguki, reports.
UAE's capital, Abu Dhabi, on Monday began enforcing a curfew as part of its national sterilization program. Residents and citizens found moving between midnight and 5 a.m. without a permit will be fined. Although it is one of the most vaccinated countries in the world, with over 68% of its population vaccinated, the UAE records more than 1,000 infections weekly.
Being vaccinated doesn't stop you from being infected again. You still need to continue protecting yourself. You still need to comply with those protocols. which requires the continuous use of face mask anytime you're outside your house, and current washing of hands and the likes. So a lot of people abandon those protocols once they believe that they are fully vaccinated now, so they believe they can do whatever they like.
New requirements to enter Abu Dhabi from other Emirates have also been announced. Local authority says it is a proactive measure to prevent COVID-19 variants and to ensure continuous testing.
Anytime they get into Abu Dhabi, they are required, if they want to stay like up to like 4 days, they were required to have another PCR test done. And if they still want to stay up to 8 days, they must have another PCR on the 8th day. So this is a laid down rules, and of which anyone that wants to stay here has to comply with, or else will be fined.
35 countries are currently on Abu Dhabi's green list, including Canada, USA, Saudi Arabia, China, Israel, and France. Seychelles and Mauritius are the only African countries on the list. Meanwhile, Dubai's flag carrier Emirates Airline has extended its suspension of flights between Nigeria and the UAE until the 31st of July, a sign that the rift between both governments is yet to end, even as some states in Nigeria have been put on red alert. All affected bookings have also been cancelled, with business persons seeing no end in sight to the situation, even as the Expo 2020 Dubai, which organizers say will hold, draws closer.
Over in England, Muslims were able to pray shoulder to shoulder for the first time since the start of the pandemic, after social distancing restrictions were eased just in time for the start of the holiday. Tagged as the long-awaited Freedom Day, on Monday, legal lockdown restrictions that have been in place for more than a year were finally relaxed. Our correspondent, Ijeoma Onyato, tells us how Britons are enjoying their newfound freedom.
This is the ping on the NHS Test and Trace app that many in England are now happy to receive after months of living in fear of the ping to self-isolate. Since Freedom Day on July the 19th, the new notification ping says that most COVID-19 legal restrictions have been lifted in England. So what has changed? There are now no limits on how many people can meet. People working from home should return to the workplace gradually. The 1 meter plus guidance has been removed, except in some places like hospitals and passport control. And while face coverings are no longer required by law, people are still encouraged to wear them in crowded spaces. Of keen interest is the guidance for travellers. The government says fully vaccinated people returning to England from most amber list countries will not need to quarantine. And with that, many have been thronging vaccination centres to get that all-important second jab. Proof of full vaccination has never been so critical for prospective holidaymakers, as many see this as the passport, not just to get away, but to be able to return to England without the need to quarantine. But while many will be taking short trips, hitting beaches, clubs and restaurants, doctors and healthcare workers are calling for cautious behaviour from the public.
In as much as people are desperate to get out there, to get back to what you term normal life, if there's any such word like that anymore since the pandemic, I would advise them to just wait, follow the science. If it's recommended that you wait for 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks before they recommended the second dose, I would advise people to stick to that plan.
The coming weeks and months will determine if lifting legal restrictions on social behaviour in the face of rising new infection figures has been the best move in the race to control the spread of the pandemic.
While some parts of the world celebrated the Eid holiday under the shadow of the COVID-19 pandemic, for Afghanistan and Mali, it was a week plagued with extra concerns to do with security, with both leaders targeted. Here's what happened.
Rockets struck Afghanistan's capital on Tuesday, landing near the presidential palace during Eid al-Kabir prayers. Despite the whistling rockets and explosions, prayers continued. The outdoor gathering included Afghan President Ashraf Ghani. Officials said 3 rockets landed outside the palace, but there were no immediate reports of injuries. It was not immediately clear who was behind the attack. However, conflict has escalated in the country, largely spurred by the Taliban launching major offensives, taking districts and border crossings as foreign troops withdraw. Unlike some previous years, the Taliban did not declare a ceasefire during the Eid holiday this year. Over in Mali, coup leader and interim president Colonel Assimi Goïta was the target of a stabbing attack. It occurred while he was taking part in an Eid al-Adha prayer at the capital Bamako's Grand Mosque. According to officials, the attacker was immediately overpowered and Goïta was unharmed.
Everything is fine. There is no problem. It's part of being a leader. There are always people who are unhappy. There are people who at any time can try things to destabilize, to try isolated actions. It's an isolated action. It was handled. I want to reassure people and say that I am very well. There's no problem. No one was injured and the situation was handled. Once more, I am asking the Malian people and our partners to work together so we can build this country.
Goïta, a 38-year-old Special Forces colonel, took power in June following his second overthrow of a president in 9 months. He has promised to hand over to civilian rule as planned next year.
Let's check in on the situation in South Africa now. South Africans celebrated International Nelson Mandela Day on June the 18th, and the theme this year was "One Hand Can Feed Another." Following the recent violence and looting in some parts of the country, South Africa's president, in his capacity as the ruling ANC leader, spent the day joining in the cleanup efforts at some affected shopping malls in Soweto.
As part of his Nelson Mandela Day activities, the president of the African National Congress, Cyril Ramaphosa, leading other party officials for the cleanup as well as solidarity efforts, visited several places in Soweto, including here in the Fire Mall, the Jabulani Mall, as well as the Maponya Mall, which was actually not affected by the violence. It was here at this mall, right next to the police station, that 11 people died in a looting stampede. After going through what's left of the mall and helping with some cleanup, the president called for a moment's silence in honor of the dead.
We are sorry. Now the next step for us is to rebuild. We must rebuild. We have learned valuable lessons here. We must also support the businesses that have lost a lot here. And we will act together to make sure that we defend and we rebuild.
Susanna Osei, a Ghanaian, is one of those who lost everything in the violence. She says she's not even sure where to start rebuilding from.
I have 4 hair salons around Soweto and all of them was gone. Even I couldn't get even a comb from it. So we are pleading to the government to help us more to renovate our shops. Otherwise, we don't know what we are going to do now.
Would you agree with those who say government has been soft on the people who participated here, like they're being made out to be victims themselves when there are victims, people who have lost so much?
Yes, I encourage government to take drastic actions against those people who are criminals, and the justice system should really give proper punishment so that it becomes a lesson.
Many eager community members came out in numbers to either help or just catch a glimpse of the VIP visitors. Looking at all the faces of the community members, it's hard not to wonder if some of those who have come out to help to clean up were not part of those who looted. Police Minister Begit Trele, speaking in KwaZulu-Natal, promised to fish out all the looters.
It's going to be a very tough time in many houses and many homes around South Africa, because we will want to come in your house and you give us the appliance and you give us receipt. So they better call those people and get receipt. If you don't have a receipt, hard luck to you.
President Cyril Ramaphosa is this year's speaker at the Nelson Mandela Day virtual event, which has the theme, "One Hand Can Help Feed Another."
When Foreign Dispatches returns in just a moment, we take a look at the future of space tourism as Jeff Bezos becomes the latest billionaire to blast off to space. Don't go anywhere. You're still watching Foreign Dispatches on Channels Television. Over the last few weeks, we've seen weather around the world change drastically, causing disaster and chaos and displacing thousands of people. And according to a NASA study, coastal flooding is a far more urgent problem than previously thought. The study says cities along coast should expect a surge of flooding as soon as the next decade.
Weather events in the year 2021 have perhaps made it clearer to G20 governments around the world the importance of climate change as they hold meetings in Italy from July 22nd to 23rd. The G20 members account for more than 80% of world domestic product, 75% of global trade, and 60% of the population of the planet. The meeting comes nearly 2 weeks after the European Union unveiled its most ambitious plan yet to fight climate change, with a dozen policies setting out in unprecedented detail how to overhaul its 27 economies to become greener this decade. Latest events have shown decision on mitigating climate change needs to come sooner as nature lashes out. Case in point, recent floods in southern Germany as rivers overflow their banks, killing over 180 people. Parts of Belgium, France, the Netherlands and Switzerland were also affected. There have been tornadoes in Canada, wildfires in the United States, a heat wave in the Northern Hemisphere, floods in parts of Asia, and most recently in Lagos, Nigeria. The Nigerian Meteorological Agency predicts normal to above normal rainfall season this year across the country. Beyond Nigeria, a new NASA study says coastal flooding is a far more urgent problem than previously thought. Its study suggests cities along coasts should expect a surge of flooding as soon as the next decade.
So in the coming decades, as sea level continues to increase from global warming, and it's increasing across the globe, the combination of sea level rise associated with global warming and then natural drivers of sea level variability, so the things causing sea level to go up and down just naturally in the ocean, are going to combine to cause coastal flooding. And what we found is that this increase in coastal flooding is really going to be increased significantly in the coming decades, specifically in 2030 to 2040. There's been a lot of reaction to our study because I think it does change the perception a little bit of the impacts of sea level. So again, a lot of people, especially in areas that aren't experiencing any flooding right now, they think of this as a very long-term problem. But this study shows that because of how these different factors combine, we're going to see some near-term effects worsening in locations that are already feeling those effects, but starting in locations where they're not. So I think this is eye-opening for a lot of people. But again, I think it's really critical information for planners. And I think there's a great amount of interest in trying to get this information from science and scientists into the hands of planners.
Some scientists say even under the best scenarios for emission reductions, the world will still have to get used to more extreme weather events, and that while extreme weather events have been directly attributed to human-induced climate change, like the June heat wave that hit North America, the data still needs to be crunched to make a direct link between the weather seen in places like Germany and human activity.
And finally on the program, let's take a journey to space alongside billionaire Jeff Bezos as he makes a short journey to space in the first crewed flight of his rocket ship, New Shepard. Take a look.
Jeff Bezos, the richest man on Earth, became the richest man to visit space on Tuesday after he had 3 other crew members soared more than 66 miles high aboard his company Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket, a historic unpiloted, suboptimal flight that helps to inaugurate a new era of private commercial space tourism. The 57-year-old American billionaire emerged from the space capsule after safely touching down in Texas desert wearing a blue flight suit and a cowboy hat. Bezos exchanged hugs with his crew, which included his brother Mark, 82-year-old pioneering female aviator Wally Funk, and teenage physics student Oliver Damon, Blue Origin's first paying customers.
Feel like you got your money's worth, sir?
For sure. At 18 years old, Damon became the youngest person to reach space, while Funk became the oldest After training to become a NASA astronaut in the early 1960s, was passed over because of her gender.
I felt like I was just laying down. And I was going into space. And I want to thank you, sweetheart, because you made it possible for me. I've been waiting a long time to finally get it up there, and I've done a lot of astronaut training through the world, Russia, America, and I could always beat the guys on what they were doing because I was always stronger, and I've always done everything on my own, and I didn't do dolls. I did outside stuff. and I flew airplanes. I had over 19,000 some hours. I loved it. And I loved being here with all of you and your family and the four of us. We had a great time. It was wonderful.
True.
I want to go again fast.
So amazing to see it from above and to move around. Like, yeah, I totally agree. It feels so natural, like almost like we should be doing this. And I hope that we are one of the first, and let's hope that many, many more people can do this, because this experience you should share with more and more people. It's so amazing.
Bezos, who recently stepped down as CEO of Amazon, thanked employees and customers at the company he founded, telling a news conference that their hard work and Amazon purchases had made his spaceflight possible.
I want to thank every Amazon employee and every Amazon customer, because you guys paid for all of this. So seriously, for every Amazon customer out there and every Amazon employee, thank you from the bottom of my heart very much. It's very appreciated. And, you know, now on to how it felt. Oh my God! My expectations were high and they were dramatically exceeded. We're going to build a road to space so that our kids and their kids can build the future. And we need to do that. We need to do that to solve the problems here on Earth. This is not about escaping Earth. Every time I read an article about people wanting to escape Earth, no. The whole point is, this is the only good planet in this solar system. We've sent robotic probes to all of them. This is the only good one, I promise you. And we have to take care of it. And if you go into space and see how fragile it is, you'll want to take care of it even more. And that's what this is about. We have to take, and this is going to take decades, this is a big vision, but big things start small. And this is how it starts.
That's incredible.
His trip to the edge of space lasted about 10 minutes and 20 seconds, including a few minutes of weightlessness. Bezos described the company's very first crewed spaceflight as a step toward an ambitious future and is planning 2 more passenger flights this year. On a giant screen in New York's Times Square, people watched the takeoff, a historic suboptimal flight that helps to inaugurate a new era of private commercial space tourism.
This is great. It's a wonderful achievement for space and human space travel, so this is the next era, right? So can't wait to get my Uber up there.
It's a great moment to see something like this happen, and I think it's just going to be awesome for all of us to get a chance to go into the space in the future.
It's one of our lifetime things that could happen for us, right? Traveling so fast.
There's always just regular people thinking about the billionaires going up, but honestly, I think it's also a celebration for the everyday man to be able to go up.
Blue Control, Oliver.
Tuesday's mission was a part of a fiercely competitive battle between Bezos and British billionaire Richard Branson, who just 9 days earlier successfully flew to the edge of space aboard his competing space tourism company, Virgin Galactic spaceplane. Both men, as well as fellow billionaire Elon Musk, are aiming to tap a potentially lucrative space tourism market, which Swiss banks UBS estimates will be worth $3 billion annually in a decade. Musk plans to send an all-civilian crew on a several-day orbital mission on his Crew Dragon capsule in September.
Well, this is where we say goodbye till next time. Remember, our top stories are never far away. You can catch them on channelstv.com. Thank you so much for watching the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. Stay safe.